You're entering Corsi Nation.
This is Jerome Corsi, and today it is Tuesday. It's January 6th, 2026. And you can see I'm still in transit. It'll be a while before I'm settled in a new house, and we're beginning, plans for what the next stage of Corsi Nation is going to be. At the moment, I still don't have my microphone set up. It's kind of a limited setup here, so please bear with us. I want to cover a number of things. Let's go right into what's going on in Venezuela. We're finding that now the whole issue is who's going to take over the government. And of course, we have a CIA report that the Maduro loyalists would be the best to run the country after Maduro was gone. And there's violence in the streets. It's a revolutionary moment. And I think the Venezuelan people are not about to let the Maduro crowd continuing to run the country, although it's at a very tipping point kind of moment when these regimes have still a lot of the power of the military and force, and they can put down the people in terms of a uprising. The United States does not want to do a regime change. We don't want to be in there managing the country, even though Trump says we're going to do it. And the reality is it's probably going to take 10 years before the oil industry can be turned around to be a massive production energy for the Venezuelan people. They've got to get the whole infrastructure up and going again. It's largely shut down by Maduro. And this whole totalitarian control state apparatus has to be dismantled. So the country's in flux right now, and the outcome is not yet certain. But I think we're going to see that, in fact, we're on the right track. We're making progress, and I'm very pleased to see at least that Maduro is gone and that the step has been taken. This is going to make a major impact on Cuba. Venezuela has been funding Cuba. And I think Venezuela is now going to, of course, not be able to fund Cuba. Cuba may be finding itself in the verge of bankruptcy. Colombia has also been put on notice, and so is Mexico. Trump is enacting one more stage of his Monroe Doctrine. And as I've been saying from the beginning of the Trump second term, we've got to face a world configuration in which the United States, Russia, and China are going to be the three dominant superpowers, and each is going to have their sphere of influence, whether we like it or not. And so that sphere of influence is going to have to mean that even in terms of Russia in Ukraine, it's going to be very difficult to see Russia dislodge the territory it has in Ukraine. Russia is certainly not giving up Crimea and Sevastopol, its naval base on the Black Sea. Russia is not about to reverse its territorial gains without a nuclear war. And the Zelensky regime is now mired in obvious corruption. And they're still trying to get money from the Europeans in order to maintain the lifestyle of the elite running the country. It's also disturbing to me, this probably will not get much notice, but it was disturbing to me to see that the Zelensky is now bringing in one of the advisors, economic advisors, a former Canadian deputy prime minister, this Chrystia Freeland, as an economic advisor. She is clearly a New World Order globalist, and she's going to be the advisor to Zelensky in Ukraine on economic development. This is being reported by the conservative treehouse today. Ukraine is in a precarious situation in terms of its economic instability given the war. And the appointment's intended to assist Zelensky in gaining Western banking investment in Ukraine as part of his 20-point plan related to economic recovery. But again, the downside is that it's just going to pour more billions into what has already been revealed about the billions of laundered funds that are being skimmed by the corrupt members of the Ukraine government related to Zelensky. And so we can only imagine, the conservative treehouse writes, we can only imagine how much of the recovery funds would be apportioned to maintaining the life of indulgence the political leaders expect. So the corruption issue is now, I think, gaining in the discussion of Zelensky, undermining his credibility, undermining his urgent need for more money all the time. And the solution, I've written an article on American Thinker saying the best way Trump can end this war is simply to withdraw our monetary support and our military support. Without the United States support, Zelensky and Ukraine have lost this war. It's obvious they've lost this war. They won't be able to go much longer. And the truth is that Zelensky is running a failed government in an economic disaster and a losing war. And if it weren't for the European delusion that they can maintain sovereignty somehow or other, that they're worried about Russia gaining this territory, Europe would be well advised to figure out how to deal with Russia. Not that Russia wants to take over Western Europe, but Eastern Europe is going to be within Russia's sphere of influence, and Ukraine and Finland had better come to this recognition, because those are the two outlets Russia has to the Atlantic, through the North Sea in Finland and through the Black Sea, the Mediterranean, and the southern entry to the Atlantic. And Russia is not about to give these up. So what I see is that Trump is advancing this agenda that we're going to be preserving first the Western Hemisphere. And if you notice very carefully, pay attention to the fact that he's also including Greenland in a lot of these discussions. And Trump is upping our diplomatic involvement and our economic involvement with Greenland. So I think Trump sees, as I do, the need to extend American sovereignty and American interests from the Arctic to the Antarctic in the Western Hemisphere. And this is a step to counter China's Belt and Road Initiative, where China wants to take over world trade from the Southern Hemisphere. That's got to be countered. And it's also Russia's ambitions, which are to establish itself again as a major economic state. Russia is not yet a major economy, and China's economy is very fragile. It's built on a lot of debt and a lot of the fact that it's got cheap labor from the United States. As that labor withdraws, China is going to be increasing economic problems. And the amount of world debt that's out there right now does not bode to me to be anything except a coming global crisis. Now, my relationship with sponsorship from Swiss America is diminishing. It's going to change. I'm going to try to revive a new program. But gold and silver are still surging. You have now gold today at $4,484 an ounce and silver at $79 an ounce. Again, very close to $80 an ounce. And I'm encouraging people to go to Swiss America and get this offer for these 250 Walking Liberty $50, which are being offered as a one-time loss leader by Swiss America for new customers, sold at virtually the price what they're worth in silver. And if you can start accumulating some silver right now, it's going to appreciate in percentage-wise faster than gold because the price is lower. And it will go up faster. It's going to go from $80 to $160 an ounce, a lot faster than gold is going to go from $4,500 an ounce to $9,000 an ounce. Gold will get there, but it'll take longer. And doubling your money is what this is all about. You have a better chance of doing it holding silver. Okay, and if Chris will show you, you can still get the book I wrote with Dean Heskin on the coming global crisis in the debt crisis, how it's going to create an historic gold rush by calling a toll-free number, which is 1-800-519-6268. 1-800-519-6268. Get some gold and get some silver. And I'll be proposing ways, I think, for Swiss America to offer you getting silver at a reasonable price and being able to hold it long term for its gains. Doubling your money is what this is about, and I think you've got a better chance of doing it, quite frankly, in silver. Okay, Chris, I'm going to one more story I want to cover that I want to have you comment. We're seeing that the Security Council now is calling for hearings on the United States invading Venezuela and capturing Maduro. But the Somali UN Security Council president, who is another black guy, is named Abubakar Dahir, undoubtedly Muslim. He's the permanent representative of Somalia to the United Nations. He's the president of the United Nations Security Council, and he's involved with the healthcare agency in Ohio that the Department of Homeland Security or Health and Human Services previously took action against over fraud. Okay, so the spokesperson for HHS, Jim O'Neill, said, "I can confirm public speculation that Ambassador Abubakar Dahir Osman, permanent representative of Somalia to the UN and president of the Security Council, is in fact associated with Progressive Healthcare Solutions, a home health care agency in Cincinnati. HHS has previously taken action against Progressive in response to a conviction for a Medicare fraud." Okay, so this is a guy, permanent representative from Somalia in the UN, head of the Security Council, is involved in healthcare fraud in Ohio. Doesn't surprise me, not at all. And Tim Walz is not going to run for governor again. He was the vice presidential candidate, and now with Somalia scandal, by the way, ads being run now in Craigslist for child actors to fill these Somali healthcare centers, while the Department of Homeland Security is getting 2,000 DHS agents ready to go into Minneapolis and Minnesota and arrest and deport these Somalians who are here illegally. Of course, the Hilton hotels are saying they will not allow the Department of Homeland Security officers to have a room. And again, these actions, which are opposing DHS, ought to be seen as criminal because they're supporting illegal immigrants, and that's against the law. It's not a joke. It's not a game. It's not politics. It's a crime. Chris, I want you to comment on some of this because I think we're seeing right now some disruption in the communist world, but yet the communists are in ascendancy right now in the Democratic Party. Democratic Party is becoming an openly communist party. Chris.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Over here, we're seeing the communist mayor Zoran Mamdani, his rise, but I believe that rise is going to lead to a little bit more of a fall of communism. That's already his tenant, I guess his tenant head, whatever, I guess, or tenant advocate, Sia something or other. She's yammering on about how
housing authority, I think.
Right. She was going to think of private property as more of a collective issue of property, and saying it would affect white family or white owners the most. Some people of color, but white owners. It's basically politics of envy. What you're seeing around the world, though, is a decline in communism. South America is a huge part of that. And the good thing about being able to go into Venezuela and take down Maduro, which has been, he has a rap sheet pretty long. There's a lot more support from the people of South America in the neighboring nations. As we had the Chile elections with a new president coming in, beating the communist. Argentina reelects Milei. You got some of the smaller nations there. It's going to keep going.
Well, I think communism is obviously failing again,
right,
as it always does, and it's never always a surprise to the left, who believes all this nonsense about oppression and white privilege, and we just got to do DEI in order to and affirmative action and all these things that just don't work, and end up with a totalitarian regime that anybody who disagrees with it goes to prison. And we're finding that's increasingly the reaction in Europe. So Western Europe is going totalitarian because it won't handle the issue of the Islamic invasion, which largely started with the disruption of Syria. And again, we can thank Obama for many of these things. Obama intentionally opened our borders, intentionally understood, as good Marxists do, that the demographics are politics. And if you can flood the country with people who hate the country, have no intention of assimilating, you can destroy the country. And that's what Obama was trying to do. And I think it's becoming apparent that Obama and Biden were perhaps our two worst presidents. In fact, maybe our only two treasonous presidents that we've had in our history.
Well, fair enough. And if you look at it through an historical lens, even major, let's say, close to communist type presidents we've had, like your FDRs of the world, at least they backed America when the time came. Again, that's to an extent. You're watching the Democrat Party now. It's fallen so far to the left to the point where they still believe, or at least they're acting as if it was hip. The people who follow the left right now have been trained for years to believe the Republicans were the mean, evil, censorship, pro-business and pro-rich people party, whereas that shift has changed. But they kind of fell off the bus because their celebrities are telling them, hey, no, this is the way to go. They treat the elections, they've been treating the last, I don't know, 40, 50 years of elections on the left as votes for student body president. I got to the point where I'm listening to Zoran Mamdani Yamaran, and I'm thinking he's going to start promising no homework, 2 Taco Tuesdays for lunch, maybe one on Wednesday as well, and extra pizza for everybody.
It's unbelievable. There's also a story out today about the Democratic billionaire kings and queens funneling millions into Democratic-led terror-tied nonprofits. And of course, I've been reporting on this for years, that Wall Street Journal reporter Asra Nomani who's now at Fox News, is investigating the left-wing billionaire-funded dark money networks in the nonprofit world and offering much-needed coverage for the mainstream media, Americans, on how these NGOs influence protest movements, unleash riots, and conduct sophisticated political pressure campaigns, these color revolutions. Okay, so when you look at, for instance, Soros, who's funding, General Flynn is on this, funding global terrorist operations. Since 2016, George Soros's Open Society foundations have been pouring money in $80 million into groups tied to terrorism or extreme violence. The Open Society, General Flynn, Open Society has sent millions of dollars to U.S.-based organizations engaged in direct actions that the FBI defines as domestic terrorism. The groups include the Center for Third World Organizing, its militant partner Ruckus Society, which trained activists in property destruction and sabotage during the 2020 riots, the Sunrise Movement, which endorsed the Antifa-linked Stop Cop City program, which activists currently face over 40 domestic terrorist charges and 60 racketeering charges. At the same time, the Open Society awarded $18 million to Movement for Black Lives, a group that co-authored a radical guide that glorifies Hamas's October 7th massacre and instructs activists in the use of false IDs, blockades, and economic disruption. So here you got Soros funding terrorist organizations, and yet we do nothing to shut down the Open Society Foundation, which is clearly anti-American, and it's clearly seeking to undermine constitutional privileges and constitutional rights of American citizens. Chris, your comments on this?
There we go. Well, every time somebody from the right or somebody with common sense in global or national politics says, look, we have to investigate George Soros, every left-wing media outlet jumps to his defense. You have a New York Times saying, "No, there's no proof he's ever said that." Reuters going, "No, no." Reuters was great. They actually said recently, "Well, George Soros never said he was out to destroy America." The fact is, they're taking superficial comments that the man made and ignoring his actions, ignoring the open society's actions. Basically, them. George Soros is looking to take down the world. What do you expect from a man who has made his fortune generally by short selling and destroying the economies and currencies of small nations?
Including Great Britain, which is becoming a small and irrelevant nation.
Destroy the free world, take control.
Well, following this Minnesota fraud, Texas Governor Abbott is directing investigation into child care programs. I think they're going to be found to be a scam around the country and a leftist way to steal money from the federal government. We've also got protests going on and continuing to go on in Iran in the streets. Now, President Trump has supported the protesters, very different than Obama did in 2009 when the protesters were in the streets in Tehran, and Obama said nothing, did nothing to help them. Now, here, the supreme leader may be prepared to flee. I mean, I think this time, this revolution has a chance to succeed because Trump is vocalizing support for it. Trump said, we're watching the situation very carefully. If they start killing people like they have in the past, I think they're going to get hit very hard by the United States. Okay, and again, Trump has been warning that Washington's going to intervene if Iran violently kills peaceful protesters, which is how in the past Iran has always stopped these uprisings. So Trump is on to it, and Trump is commenting about Iran. He's commenting about Mexico, Colombia, Cuba. Trump is on I think, the warpath, and he should be, to confront these communist movements around the world that seek to destroy freedom and to restore freedom. This is an historic moment that we have not had a president that has taken these kinds of actions. I can't think of any that has taken these actions since the end of World War II. Not even John Kennedy was this active supporting freedoms around the world. But finally, I think we're seeing the totalitarian regimes reach the point of corruption, graft, stealing. The Democratic Party can only succeed by stealing the 2026 election. And daily, I'm seeing more and more information coming out from the White House, making it clear that you are having fraudulent elections. Georgia is now under investigation, as it should be. Wisconsin's under investigation. A number of states are under investigation. And I think we're going to come to the point where we're going to have a presidential order that in the 2026 election, we're going to have proof of citizenship to vote. And the Democrats' heads are going to explode over that because stealing elections has been the cornerstone of their power. We had fair elections. This is like the same as in Venezuela. I think the 90% of the Democrats in office would stand risk of losing their jobs. I think the American people are turning against the Democrats, despite the mainstream media trying to prop up their narrative. I just don't think it's working any longer because I think the American people have seen enough of the corruption, enough of the stealing to understand that the Democratic Party is not only a communist party, it's a treasonous party. And if so, we should begin to look back at the legislation from the 1950s that outlawed the Communist Party and seek about putting them back into place and going after these communists as traitors. Okay, Maduro had placed Marco Rubio on an assassination list. How can we tolerate this type of aggression against the United States? And the fact that you've got a coalition now, an anti-American coalition that has determined to undermine our power. And if it weren't for President Trump, we had more Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. God only help us where we'd be headed as a nation. I think we're at an important point in our history, and Donald Trump and what's going on with regards to Venezuela and these other countries needs to continue. So the first part of 2026 is preparing, I think, for the election integrity to be the main issue as we approach mid-year. And the information coming out from the White House now is a steady flow of information about how the computers have been rigged, how foreign nations are tampering with our elections, how there are millions and millions of these records in the state databases that are corrupt, voters that don't exist, and yet have legitimate state IDs and can be used in mail-in ballot schemes. It's something that we led the charge on with gods5stones.com, and we're going to continue to lead the charge on that theme. Okay, this is Dr. Jerome Corsi today. It's Tuesday. It's January 6th, 2026. And I think we're seeing some major changes going on. We're going to continue to watch them. We're going to continue to applaud the work that President Trump is doing and hope that the Congress, the GOP in Congress, has the resolve to support President Trump, even though we have a uniparty system and many of the Republicans are not on the MAGA agenda. But Trump is certainly advancing the MAGA agenda in the Western Hemisphere by insisting that countries that are opposed to the United States run the risk of our direct intervention. Dr. Jerome Corsi, and then God always wins. God's going to win here too. And I'm encouraging you to follow the guidance of 2 Chronicles 7:14. Let's get on our knees and ask God to forgive us for letting the country get to this point. God take it out of our schools, our lives, our marriages. So many abortions as Roe v. Wade. But if we do repent and acknowledge that we did not oppose these measures when they were being taken as strongly as we should have, God will hear our prayer and heal our land. Dr. Jerome Corsi with CorsiNation.com. We'll be broadcasting podcasts every weekday. Thank you for joining us. God bless.